for those who need it most. If this can happen to her, it can happen to anyone.
We're going to tell her story now in a unique way.
Who is Dr. Aafia Saddiqui? Dr. Aafia Saddiqui is a neuroscientist who studied at MIT in Brandeis. Specifically, she studied how to improve the education system for disabled children. While attending school, Aafia volunteered in a class to help real children benefit from the improvements she made. She also found time to become a leader in the Muslim Student Association. Friends still remember her tearful pleas for refugees. How can you have more than one pair of shoes when our brothers in Bosnia are freezing? Despite the busy schedule of a student, Aafia gave presentations constantly about the humanitarian crisis in Bosnia. She also collected Qur'ans for prisoners, carrying the heavy boxes herself, even when she was pregnant. On top of all of her academic achievements, Dr. Saddiqui is also a Hafiza of Qur'an, one who has memorized the Qur'an. In March of 2003, Dr. Saddiqui left her mother's house in Pakistan for the Karachi airport and disappeared along with her children. Dr. Saddiqui mysteriously reappeared in 2008 in Afghanistan, shortly before an incident that nearly killed her. Where was she for 5 years? A secretly recorded tape was handed to Saddiqui's lawyers, where a Pakistani superintendent of police admits to being personally involved in Saddiqui's abduction. Her oldest son, Ahmed, remembers being stopped en route to the airport. He recounts that they were detained by 15 to 20 people, including a white lady. Another witness present saw Saddiqui slapped across her face. Ahmed saw his 6-month-old brother Suleiman fall to the ground. Suleiman has never been seen again. This is the last of what Ahmed remembers before he was separated from his family and made to inhale something that knocked him out. On the same day that Saddiqui and her children disappeared, her mother was threatened by a man in a motorcycle helmet. He warned her to not report her daughter as missing. The Pakistani newspaper Dawn reported soon after that Saddiqui was in Pakistani custody, as did NBC Nightly News. Both would later retract the story. The FBI also met with her family. They said Saddiqui was alive but would answer no questions about her whereabouts. All of a sudden, the media reported different kinds of stories. Dr. Saddiqui was accused of being a courier for blood diamonds from Liberia. She had been in Boston at the time. The story was fake, but damage had already been done. In 2004, John Ashcroft declared to the nation that Aafia was, quote, the most dangerous woman in the world, end quote. Dr. Saddiqui was quickly being turned into a boogeyman to justify the war on terrorism. Why was she captured? In the 4 years between 2001 and 2005, it is estimated that the government of Parvez Musharraf handed over 400 to 800 prisoners to the United States. Many were innocent, but their capture made the war on terror seem justified. A few weeks before Saddiqui disappeared, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was captured. He was waterboarded 183 times in his first month of imprisonment. Quote, I gave a lot of false information to satisfy what I believed the interrogators wished to hear, end quote. Supposedly, Mohammed named names, leading to the capture of both Majid Khan and Saddiqui. Khan was taken to Guantanamo. Khan was tortured so much that he attempted suicide by biting through an artery. So, based on the words of men trying to escape torture, Saddiqui was caught and tormented herself. Where was Saddiqui between her abduction in 2003 and reappearance in 2008? Binyan Muhammad, another innocent victim of the war on terror, who endured 7 years of detention and torture at the hands of the U.S. government, claims that he saw Saddiqui at the notorious U.S.-run prison in Bagram, Afghanistan. She was the only female prisoner, and the men referred to her as the Gray Lady of Bagram. Night by night, or night after night, they would hear her cries. Dr. Saddiqui, who was told by the judge that her years of secret detention were irrelevant to her trial, confirms that she was indeed held at Bagram. She was subjected to all kinds of torture, physical, psychological, and sexual. In one horrific instance, guards desecrated a Quran and forced her to walk barefoot on the torn pages. The male prisoners, sickened by the screams of a woman who was clearly being tortured, staged a hunger strike in her defense. One day, without explanation, Siddiqui was dropped off. In a confused state, she was released on a street in Afghanistan. "This is your son." "He has got that big? It has been that long?" She was handed a bag by the people who released her. Some have suspected that Siddiqui was being sent off defenseless to her death. But something unexpected happened. She walked in a different direction when she heard the call to prayer. "See, they are calling, come to Salah, come to success." She was stopped and detained. The bag she was handed supposedly contained instructions for explosives. But Dr. Saddiqui was never charged with terrorism. There are two versions of the events that followed. While Siddiqui was detained at an Afghan police station, the U.S. claims she was behind a curtain, that she spotted a weapon and picked it up. Emerging from behind the curtain, she fired at Afghan police and American soldiers, hitting nothing. She wrestled men to the ground and was shot because they defended themselves. The supposed witnesses had conflicting testimonies, disagreeing on details, like whether she was standing or sitting. And only the American witnesses backed this version of events. Dr. Siddiqui's version of the story puts her behind a curtain too, but little else is similar. Hearing American voices, she feared being returned to Bagram. She peered out looking for a possible escape route. One of the armed men saw her and yelled, "She's free!" before shooting her multiple times in the abdomen. She was nearly killed. The prosecution claimed bullet holes at the station were made by Siddiqui firing a weapon. But a video in the U.S. government's possession for months shows the same bullet holes there the day before Siddiqui arrived. While recovering, Dr. Siddiqui was restrained to the bed and denied guests, save for FBI agents. They claimed that she made confessions which would be convenient, since no forensic evidence exists to support the story where Siddiqui went on a shooting rampage. A mere 7 days after being shot and nearly killed, Dr. Siddiqui was brought to New York with no extradition to face charges of attempted murder. Lady Al-Qaeda, as they called her, the most dangerous woman in the world, was never charged with terrorism. Ahmed, who disappeared with his mother in 2003, was released to his family in 2008. He was interrogated upon his return to Pakistan. It is still unknown where he was detained for all those years. The middle child, Mariam, was dropped off mysteriously. A note was tied to her with her grandmother's address written on it. She was only able to speak English and with an American accent. Hello. It took a DNA test to confirm that she was Siddiqui's daughter. The third and youngest child, Suleiman, remains missing since the 2003 abduction and is feared dead. Dr. Siddiqui's trial in New York was a sham. She was not allowed to pick her defense team. The jury was not sequestered, free to read and be influenced by propaganda against Siddiqui. And though she was never charged with terrorism, the prosecution raised the specter of terrorism constantly. The prosecution asked her about chemistry training she had in school. Realizing that they brought up this irrelevant detail to paint her as a bomb maker or worse, she exclaimed, "You can't build a case on hate. You should build it on facts." Siddiqui was sentenced to 86 years in prison. Realizing her trial to be a sham, her parting words to the judge were nonetheless compassionate. Judge, I forgive you. I beg, thank you, his response, thank you. I wish other people were like you. You will now be spending the rest of your life in federal penitentiary. Aafia, I beg to differ from you. My fate lies with Allah, and my destiny is with my Lord. The decision of my fate is my God's, not yours. And, Mr. Judge, I thank you for letting me graduate from another MIT, the Manhattan Institute of Theatrical Arts. Siddiqui was sent to the notorious Carswell prison, where abuse of the female prisoners has been rampant. And though she was never charged with terrorism, Dr. Siddiqui's imprisonment includes harsh terror enhancements. Her family was repeatedly denied a visitation. When asked about this, a guard answered with surprising honesty, "The normal rules don't apply to your sister." Meanwhile, Siddiqui's family has been faced with constant harassment. Would-be kidnappers attempted to abduct her children again, and Siddiqui's mother has received death threats. I believe Dr. Saddiqui is a political prisoner, and now the political boogie woman for 2 U.S. regimes. It's a quote from Cindy Sheehan, an anti-war activist. Aafia was a victim of rendition, of torture, of a sham trial. She is a victim, like so many, of the so-called war on terror. She is not forgotten. Free Aafia.
650, 650. These are the numbers of a treasure.